how did America become the most prosperous nation on earth and in the history of the world in an amazingly short period of time? I mean, we're only 250 years old. This is stunning that within 100 years, we were leading the world economically. How did that happen? Capitalism, that's how it happened. Somebody said, you know, it'd be nice if we had a railroad to be able to get from point A to point B. Who's going to pay for that? Well, somebody makes an investment, they get stockholders, they build a railroad, and suddenly now you have intercontinental commerce from one coast to the other that made this country grow, where products and goods and services could be transported from one end of the country to the other. Somebody decided, wouldn't it be great if we could fly? Well, who's going to pay for that? Somebody had the idea, some other people invested in it. Now we don't think anything at all about getting on a plane, flying halfway around the world to see parts of the world we never could have seen. Right. My point in all of this is that capitalism is one of those three things that made America great. It caused people to dream. I like to look at it from a very personal perspective. I grew up dirt poor in South Arkansas. If you looked at my history, as my father used to say, don't look very far up the family tree because there's some stuff up there you don't need to see. Of course, my old man was right when he said that. I looked up and sure enough, there was stuff. I'm the first male in my entire family lineage to graduate high school. My father, grandfather, great-grandfather, not a single male upstream from me had ever gotten out of high school. If I'd lived in most countries on earth, I would be stuck where I started because there was no pathway out. Capitalism says, get an education, work hard, treat people right, make some good decisions, and you don't have to stay where you start. And the reason I'm sitting here talking to you guys is because I live in a country that afforded me the amazing opportunity to dream dreams, to work toward those dreams, and to realize them. And that's something that capitalism does for every person. It is not equal outcome, it is equal opportunity. What I do with that opportunity is totally up to me. I could still be catching chickens in South Arkansas, which is what I was doing when I was 8 and 9 years old. But I'll be honest with you, I don't ever want to go back to catching chickens. And anybody who's ever done that knows that it's got to be the nastiest, smelliest, most horrible way to get a buck that you can imagine. And so that drove me, it motivated me toward a capitalistic view that I'm going to do something that will get me out of the chicken houses and maybe into a much better life. Thank God for capitalism.
Christianity under fire, capitalism under fire. What's the underpinnings to that chapter, and what do we need to know?
Well, we're seeing a lot of movement, especially among younger people, toward socialism, an embrace of it, a demand that we embody it as part of our economic system. It occurred to me one time that some of the young political leaders, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, for example, who's one of the loudest voices for socialism, she was born after the Soviet Union fell. She was born after the Berlin Wall came down. She has no personal frame of reference to understand what socialism, i.e. communism, was doing to the world. How many millions of people were murdered in order to implement it. Socialism and communism can never take hold in a society except that you kill off all the critics. It is not something that naturally can occur without people resisting it, because once people have lived with a system in which they can do better for themselves and their families, they don't want to go to a system where no matter how hard they work, they're going to have the same as the people who got up at noon, maybe worked an hour and went back to bed. You know, it would be fairly easy to debunk this if you went to a school and said, okay, how many of you have made A's? All the kids over here who have made A's, stand over this side of the class. All the kids who have made D's and F's, you get over on this side. Now, to you kids who have made A's, it's really not fair. You know, you've had privileges that you didn't deserve. Your parents had books that maybe these kids didn't have, and, you know, you got to school better than they did. So here's the deal. All of you that have A's, you may have an average of 95. We're going to take 25 points from you and give it to the kid over here who has 50 points, and now all of you have 75 points, and everybody will have the same. Everybody okay with that? Well, the kid over here with 50 points, he loves this. But the kid that worked real hard and studied all night, has 95, he's not too happy about it. And he's going to say, wait a minute, that's not fair. I studied really hard to get a 95. Yeah, but you know, your friend over here, he doesn't have that. So he didn't study, but I'm sure he would have if he'd been brought up differently. Socialism says, give everybody the same. Oh, but wait, there's one group of people who won't have the same, and that's the people who run the game. In other words, the government. The problem with the idea of socialism is that the average person is going to end up with the equality of mediocrity. But there will be one group of people who will be empowered with great wealth and with authority. And those are the people running the game. That's the government. You never get to hear that part of the story. But as I was saying, you have a lot of young idealists who want to push us towards socialism without understanding that to do so means that they have no frame of reference. I grew up in the Cold War. I grew up in the time when we were getting up under our desk in case the Russians dropped a big one on us, you know? Now looking back, that was pretty stupid. First of all, that the Russians were going to put a nuclear device in Hope, Arkansas, pretty unlikely. I'm not sure that we were a strategic target. Okay, the Ruskies are coming. Where do we bomb? New York, Chicago, Philadelphia? Nope. Hope, Arkansas, Brookwood Elementary. That's where we're going to put the dead center, crosshairs right there. And then they had this ridiculous idea that our drill for a nuclear device was to get up under our desk. It was a drill called duck and cover. Older people will remember duck and cover. And it occurred to me when I got older, if a nuclear device had exploded at Brookwood Elementary, being under a little wooden desk probably wasn't going to keep me from being vaporized anyway.
That's right.
But we did it. But we did it because we thought the worst thing that could happen to us would be to live under communism. And why did we think that? Because we saw that they stood in lines for a piece of bread. They didn't have choices. We'd go to the store, we'd see 50 different kinds of cereal. A lot of them never saw cereal their whole lifetime growing up. We saw a little bit of a toilet paper shortage during COVID in the early days. They've lived with it their entire existence.
Yeah.
The basic necessities that we take for granted, that we have plenty of. Even people in poverty in America live better than 93 or 4% of the rest of the world who lives in the middle class. A lot of people who are living in poverty still have cars and cell phones, and they have running water, and they have electricity, and they have heat. That's something that people around the rest of the world often don't have.
Yeah.
Why do we have those things, even among those who are impoverished by our standards? Capitalism, that's why. So it's very important that we help young people growing up to understand that the economic system that we have is not based on greed. It's based on the noble idea of work and labor and innovation. And if we innovate things, come up with great ideas, you can be a high school dropout, like a college dropout, like Steve Jobs or Bill Gates, and end up becoming a billionaire and creating an industry that revolutionized the whole world. Wait, don't click that button. Well, unless it was the subscribe button, and then carry on. And while you're down there, hit that little notification bell too. Oh, and if you leave a like and a comment, I will personally give my dog Toby a treat.